All right. All right. Looks like we are live and ready to go here. Welcome, everyone, to yet another edition of the Xbox Roundtable podcast. This is show number 280. I am Invader, and it is great to be back tonight. I just got back a few days ago from my honeymoon, and I gotta say, I'm ready to get back into the swing of things. 2 weeks really fly by, to say the least. I've had a lot, a lot of things going on the past few months, and things are slowly getting back to normal now. And I can't wait to get into things tonight. With that said, tonight we are delighted to be joined by Evan Anthony, the creative lead over at Studio Feral Cat Den. Hey there, Evan. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Pleasant. I'm excited to join you guys for this podcast.
Ah, too kind, too kind. Yes, we are. We're really looking to pick your brain tonight, and just get to know you and your background, your passion for games, projects, and so on. It's going to be a good chat, I think.
Mhm.
But yeah, again, we're excited to have you here. But with that said, let me introduce everybody on the panel tonight, the TXR regulars. I'll start off with Centurion, the man who was holding down the fort for the past couple of weeks. How have you been, pal?
I'm doing pretty good. Just been kind of just chugging away at work and gaming when I can, when I have the time. I've been playing Remnant from Ashes, kind of also discovered Star Trek, the new Star Trek game with the Telltale developers working over there. Um, and also obviously checking out our guests game. So just getting in when I can. But yeah, definitely excited for tonight's show. And it's also great not to be in the driver's seat. I'm glad all the responsibilities on you.
I suppose I don't know. I like doing it personally, but I understand what you're saying, and yeah, I share your enthusiasm. Can't wait to have this chat. Moving on down the list here, another guy I'm happy to see, Crusader. How have you been doing?
I'm good. It was another long week at work. We service a lot of schools, and they're getting ready for the new school year, and it's just really busy. But I've been doing pretty good. I'm excited for this week, and I've been playing a ton more of that Greg Tech New Horizons pack in Minecraft.
Oh yeah, I did see that you were going into that. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Never figured you for a Minecraft guy for the longest time, but that's cool.
Yeah, I play the modded stuff. I actually don't think I've played a version of Minecraft above 114. I'm pretty sure they're on like 120 now.
All right. All right, good to know. Good to know. You play that with Dots, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, Dots and a couple of our other friends.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe I'll join that sometime soon. Sounds like fun. All right. And of course, we got the general in the house, GeneralMLD. How's things going at your end, pal?
Oh yeah, doing pretty good. Had a great week. In terms of gaming, after beating the original Fable anniversary, that was a fun game. I beat I'm not yet, but I'm going into the Warhammer rabbit hole. I'm playing Warhammer Mechanicus. It's like a XCOM turn-based game meets Warhammer. I'm really having a good time with that. But recently, I just beat the game we're about to talk about, Genesis Noir. So yeah, I'm not gonna say anything now, but yeah, suffice to say, I had a great time with that too.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I played it a couple of years ago, basically when it first came out, but I know what you mean. I can't wait to discuss it. And yeah, hey, I'm with you down that Warhammer rabbit hole, man. Totally love it. 40K for the win. Now, before we begin, guys, a reminder to everyone tuning in to share out this show and, of course, give it a like, as it does help us with those pesky algorithms. Share it out, let everybody know that we are live, because I'd love to have more people here, and just to share this wonderful chat that we're about to have. All right. So Evan, just to kind of start us off again, it's great to have you here. Why don't you tell us about your background in the game industry, your experiences, and so on? Like, what kind of schooling did you have? Studios, work, all that fun stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So we released our first independent video game a couple of years ago in 2021. And we had been working on that for about 7 years. We I created that game with my friend Jeremy and a bunch of our freelance friends. And this was our first attempt at making a long form narrative experience or video game. Our background was working in commercial web design, installation art, motion graphics, and character animation, and also some product design. So I met Jeremy in college, and we both studied new media design. And Jeremy ended up going more into the programming and engineering side of like creative coding, and I went more into the art direction, animation side. And we just knew from our days in school that we wanted to make something together. And video game just seemed like a way to synthesize both our different interests and our different capabilities and create something that we can market and explore a bunch of interactive kind of concepts. So with our first game, I think the kind of notable characteristic of it is that it's a bit of an piece of outsider art. We didn't really have any experience in game engines other than making a couple like little advertising kind of games, and the emphasis that we brought to Genesis Noir was about like small tactile interactions that you might find at a science museum or on like a special like promotional website, and animation that emphasizes transitions that you would see in a commercial or a music video that tries to condense a lot of storytelling into and you use design to communicate a story, in contrast to most games which I think are more traditionally character animation and convey storytelling with character performances. So yeah, I think that was kind of our goal, was to utilize our skills and try to push ourselves into this new kind of creative territory as well.
All right, very interesting. I've played Genesis Noir from beginning to end. Like, I found myself very intrigued by its approach, like from the animation, art direction, themes, and music. Like, was it always planned to be that way, or like was it like drastically different from how it was envisioned from the beginning to end?
Oh, it definitely evolved a lot over the course of conception and development. At first, like, I didn't think it would even be a 3D game. I was a big Macromedia Flash guy back in the day, and that slowly died away. And we kind of had to learn some more 3D engines, and Jeremy really encouraged me to learn that. So from just the basics of what like the environments were, that evolved a lot, but also in terms of the story structure, and the amount of writing. We were very inspired by games like Samarost and titles that tell a story without language and dialogue, because one, we had never written anything before, and there's a lot of advantages to making something that is very easy to localize. But as we progressed in trying to tell this story, of which, to give the premise is that the Big Bang is not only the creation of our universe, but also a gunshot fired by a jealous god. And you have to jump into the expanding universe and try to find a way to destroy it. So there isn't like one time or place and setting that the game takes place in. Each level leaps millions of years, throughout history, from the very first moments of the Big Bang, before matter had coalesced, to the abiogenesis in the primordial oceans, when organic molecules were first formed to throughout human history and beyond. So to try to create a story that set the player's expectations for where they were and what their goals were without language proved to be too difficult. So we ended up introducing like level introductory texts that frame what level you're about to be in and what the themes are and what the motivations for the character are.
All right. Yeah, I mean, again, it's been a little while since I've played it, but it's interesting because because again, you want to convey again the Big Bang and put it in like this noir kind of a story, this crime story, but at the same time you need to simplify it because again, a lot of people might not get the concept, right? So I just found it intriguing with your approach with how things, because I do think that the text helped out a lot. Explaining that, because again, I wasn't even thinking about like the stuff that you were saying too about like going from like primordial things to again human, again just overall like the advancements of the universe and humanity, and it's very interesting that was noir always the approach?
Yeah, that was definitely the premise, the central hook of the Big Bang sounding like the Big Sleep or other classic film noirs. And we were very inspired by a collection of short stories by Italo Calvino called Cosmic Comics, which, if you're unfamiliar with them, it's a really wonderful collection of short stories, and they all kind of explore cosmic concepts with a very humanistic lens. So, for instance, one of my favorite stories in that collection is called The Distance of the Moon. And Calvino begins each story with a paragraph or two of a scientific theory or premise. So the distance of the moon first describes how the moon was formed after a collision of a celestial body and the Earth. And this cataclysmic impact ejected material into the orbit of the Earth. And over time, all that coalesced into the moon. And Calvino imagines a story of characters living on this ancient Earth. And all the while, all this matter is forming the moon, and it's getting further and further away. So he imagines the tidal forces pulling oceans up into mountains, and characters rowing out on boats up this mountain of water, and placing a ladder that they climb up onto the moon. And eventually the moon gets so far away, to its current distance, that these characters no longer can go to this place that they really treasure. And I shared this book with Jeremy, and we were both tremendous fans of the ways that it engaged both our interest in science and history and a bit of nonfiction with fiction. And it did this in a way that also told a very poetic and very beautiful story. So we wanted to completely rip it off, but we wanted to put our own spin on it. And we're in New York City, and I remember walking across one of the bridges to Brooklyn on my way to work and just looking at the city skyline and reflecting on this book and thinking how, what other stories could be told in this vein, and the realization that the Big Bang sounded like a perfect noir story was immediately like so appealing to me that I could be very inspired by a piece of art that I admire, but put a genre spin on it and put our experiences living in New York City into this experience as well.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. Now, I don't want to hog your time because I could just keep going asking questions, but I know these guys have a lot of things that, coming from other angles. GeneralMLD, why don't you start us off next?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, how the inspiration for your game is all. That was actually very interesting because I wanted to originally ask, like, yeah, just how you blend noir and jazz with concepts like the Big Bang and the start of our own planet. But no, I feel like you explained that pretty well. I want to talk about the storyline because I know at its core you're trying to stop a jealous guy from trying to kill this woman here, and I felt like there are parts though that were open to interpretation, especially the ending with the two choices. I feel like I want to ask: is there one accepted telling of events, or is it by design for gamers to have different opinions on how it ends?
Oh, I definitely personally really like art and media that invites the audience to like choose their own ending or like to get their own message out of it. So that was definitely something that we tried to, not be too explicit, but also give our audience enough context to to be engaged still. So the main character in the game is No Man, and he is the embodiment of time, the universal constant of time. So this idea of like exploring the world as a universal constant really fit well with noir, and where I think a lot of noir protagonists really struggle with determinism, with being caught in a conspiracy or being trying to fight crime or corruption, but inevitably failing and knowing that they're going to fail and being very cognizant about mistakes they made in their past. So our character being time and having understanding of how he's going to fail and the mistakes that he made in his past, I think was a really fun way to bring us to the point where the player concludes the game with a decision to make and break that deterministic timeline. So yeah, I personally think the most fun interpretation of the ending is that both endings are canon and that the character is in some way split between them.
Right. Okay. Because my impression was that, again, my own interpretation was that it couldn't be stopped, but then he then leans into the multiverse theory to either like sidestep it entirely, like to walk away from her, or to be with like another version of her. At least that was my interpretation. So I do like that. I do like that story progression and all these like really deep scientific ideas are just presented to us like as a video game, and I feel I just want to say, yeah, you did that very well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So okay, that's nice to know, like how either one is canon. Okay, very nice.
No, actually, that's a pretty interesting question. I totally forgot that there was some leeway with the endings there, but that's interesting. Yeah, okay, both canon. All right, very cool, very cool. Guys in the chat, definitely let us know if you've played the game and what ending you got. Please tell us your thoughts. Let Evan know how much you like the game. Next up, Crusader Pal. I mean, I'd be interested to hear, like I don't know if you've ever played Genesis Noir or know anything about Feral Cat Den, but what would you like to ask Evan?
Yeah, so I guess my big question would be this game was a game that you had listed on Game Pass, correct?
Yeah.
The studio?
Yeah, and still up there too.
Okay, I know that I have it downloaded on my console. I wasn't sure if I purchased it or if it was on Game Pass. I think I do think I purchased it during a sale because I love games like this, and it's been on my list to play for forever. But I guess my big question would be is like, what is it like? And of course, there's stuff, NDAs and stuff that you can't go into full details. But what is it like getting a game on Game Pass?
It was really easy to work with Xbox.
Really?
So
Okay.
yeah, so we have we've teamed up with the indie game publisher Fellow Traveler, and they're the ones with the relationship with Xbox, and I believe that Genesis Noir was part of a package with other Fellow Traveler games.
Okay.
That they licensed. So yeah, it was really, really straightforward. There was no I guess creative input because we signed during our development. So it was really great. They put a lot of trust in us as a first-time developer to make something that would be to the level of quality that really Xbox expects. And yeah, it was great. And getting that a bit of the licensing fees up front really helped with development and let us make the game even better.
Really awesome. So like,
Mhm.
it's still in there. So it's been in there since it launched back in early 2021,
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah.
And so have you seen like how has like I guess I'm always curious as to how like the findability of these systems works. Like, because like on my end, I find it pretty easy to find new games to play through Game Pass. But like on your
Mhm.
end, I'm sure you have like an analytics viewer or something like that. Can do you find that like people who play it in Game Pass, like it tends to come in like bursts or things like that, like when like people start talking about it or things like that, or like when it first launched, did you find that like because it launched into Game Pass, there was a ton of like traffic to like Genesis Noir and your site and stuff like that?
To be honest, I haven't. I don't have the login to the
Oh,
Game Pass.
sure.
My buddy Jeremy does. I'll have to poke him and take a look at that.
Okay.
But I think in general, it's really interesting because I think this game is definitely not a game for everyone.
Right.
There's it tries a lot of different things. Some aren't as successful as others. And what I think is great about having this experience on Game Pass is that people give it a shot. And
Right.
I've seen people post online or people have written us and say, "Hey, like I didn't think this game was for me, but it was, it was on this platform and I gave it a go and it actually hooked me and I finished it." So that's super rewarding to me, and like one of the aspects about being on Game Pass that like I think is really great.
Sure, then that makes a ton of sense because, like, I can personally say that I found a ton of games like that, and
Mhm.
I'm sure that the first place I saw this game was in my Game Pass list.
Mhm.
So like that is super, super, super like good to hear because like we hear it like in that like the Xbox executives will say it, but it's always great to hear it from like a multitude of sources, like from the primary sources, like you developing the game. That like this is that you guys get these kinds of messages from gamers that like, hey, I wouldn't have found this without that, and that like you see it as a super positive thing, and that like hearing that like like helps fund development because like those are things again we hear from like the Xbox staff, but it's great to hear it from like an actual developer saying something like that.
Yeah, we've been very happy to work with Xbox and certifying the game for their system and everything has been really, really it was challenging for us the first time working in games, but yeah, they were super helpful.
So you work through the ID at Xbox program then as well?
Yeah, our publisher are the ones that directly
Okay.
work with them,
Sure.
but we had support from Xbox like throughout, both certification, but also like making sure that when we released the game, they gave it like they tweeted us out, and
Sure.
which goes a really long way for a small indie game like ours.
Well, sure, it increases discoverability by a ton when a account with several million followers is
Yeah,
putting you on blast.
and even just like the legitimacy, I think, like
Right.
to have these guys kind of say like, "Hey, yeah, give this a shot." I think
$1 trillion company tweeting out
Yeah.
You know, it's a small studio it goes a long way to saying, hey, this is a real studio. They exist. They are making a game that we are fully supporting and backing.
Yeah.
You should come try it. That's like a really cool side of it that like I don't know that like even many interviews I've seen online have gone into, like the whole that like indie developers getting like tweeted out by like someone like Xbox or a PlayStation or a Steam or something like that, and getting like shown off in like a showcase or on Game Pass or something like that, give it legitimacy. That's really cool to hear.
Yeah. I think it's the whole like subscription curation business model is super interesting, because like I wonder how worth it for Xbox like has it been for them to license our game and put it on, like both from a financial standpoint but also like the intangibles.
Mhm.
Like this game is a game that I think is very divisive. Like a lot of people are going to bounce completely off of it. It's like it's too slow, or they're like it's not for me. But there are people that like have really liked it. It's like they saw we took a risk, and they were part of our very specific audience. And I'm always curious, like for these the curation process for these subscription models is like, how do you evaluate how significant like those really meaningful connections your subscribers have with very like idiosyncratic or cult classic kind of things on your, like having a certain amount of those kinds of that media on your subscription. I feel like my guess is we're probably in that kind of like area of like, okay, we're not making them as much money as like some other, all the big titles, but like at least I hope that there's a lot of people, there's enough people that have like a strong emotional connection.
Yeah,
with this game.
I would think that games like yours create almost like a stickiness from like the like a core audience. Like it like, and I say like the conglomerate of the like the indie style games that are all kind of different and all kind of fill in like very 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 different niches.
Mhm.
That like something will always be sticky with someone, and the fact that they can go, I found this really really cool thing that I never would have on this service. I think that goes a long way personally. There's definitely like been a lot of games like that from both Microsoft's first party with like the Ori games. For me,
Mhm.
I adore the Ori games, and I never would have played them without Game Pass. Never.
Yeah, those are absurdly so well crafted.
Yeah, and then like games like just the recently the last case of Benedict Fox.
Mhm.
I think that there's like things like that, and I think it goes a long way to filling in a lot of the like a sticky feeling to the service, where like, yeah, you're getting like games like Halo or Gears of War, but also you're getting these really cool little things that could be for you, might not be for you, but like it's not going to take long for you to check it out, and you might find something really cool that you never would have tried. Like everyone I know who's played Game Pass has found something like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's really really cool to hear.
Let's see. Actually, I posted a question a couple of minutes ago, and let's see. We got a lot of love in the chat here, Evan, from Mike from Original Next Level Gaming. Great show, by the way. Mike says, Evan, I have to say I beat Genesis Noir. I streamed it as well. It's a unique game, but I enjoyed it. I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. Very unique. Although I would love to speak to the person that did those puzzles, because some of them, oh, no, I'm teasing. They were fun. They were fun. Just sometimes you get stuck on them, and they can be a pain.
Oh, of course. And yeah, thank you for playing and for streaming the game.
And
Really
Freaky
means a lot.
Jason says, I'm going to try it. And I think there's a few others that said it. But yeah, lots of love so far. Thimber, beautiful game. Yeah. So far, a lot of people enjoying the experience here. Now, Centurion Pal, I'm not sure. Have you? I think you told me before the show. Have you played Genesis Noir, or is it in your backlog?
I've played it here and there. I'm definitely trucking through it. Definitely, it's definitely a great title for those that are very interested in those very obscure titles that definitely go down the realm of crafting an extremely unique experience. It was nice to hear him talk about how the game kind of reaches out to like the idea of like the Big Bang Theory and the creation and like how the moon and all that stuff is created. I'm like one of those guys that really go deep into science fiction. Like I said earlier in the beginning of the show, I'm playing Star Trek right now. Huge, like the idea of like Schrodinger's theory and all that other fun stuff when it comes to sci-fi. So definitely I've enjoyed my experience so far. It's a very unique experience, but I guess for me and my question for this gentleman is the idea of like, I'm going to kind of build off of what Crusader started asking. And this is me more like wanting to take the temperature of the room kind of deal. So obviously the publisher was Fellow Traveler. Now that means Fellow Traveler has other independent studios that are part of their whole collection of like studios that are crafting games for them. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Do you socialize with these other independent studios, or are you guys pretty like kind of just focusing on your own thing?
Jeremy is definitely more engaged in like online in game development culture and discords and stuff like that. I'm really terrible at all that, so I'm very much like head down making the thing. But it's something I really wish I was better at.
I actually feel you on that. Trust me, there's like a part of me that just focuses on what I got going on, and I need to definitely help with the whole socialization thing.
Mm-hmm.
So at least the question I'm wanting to like kind of just bring up, and I don't know if you could go into detail on it or if you could even clarify on it, or at least what Jeremy has even said to you in passing, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I guess this kind of, so recently, a very popular individual that everybody knows his name on the tip of their tongue basically came out and said that it is an industry opinion, or what's the term I'm looking for, just basically a lot of people in the industry do not like Game Pass. What has been your overall experience with, like, has Game Pass really made your game to the success that you were really hoping that it could be? And it's just more like, have you ever heard anybody in any of your dealings with anybody under the umbrella of the publisher that you're with, has anybody ever just really felt that Game Pass is just this horrible thing that basically ends up just making you feel like you shouldn't have done that? And the only reason why I asked this is because I just really feel the individual who made this comment was really speaking for these big companies like 2K and EA that obviously have these multi-million-dollar franchises that have, like, I guess something to protect, I guess you could say. But I really do feel Game Pass, I've always said this since the beginning of Game Pass, that it almost opens the doors for studios like you said, like yourself, that are emerging studios. This was your first game title. You guys didn't have all the experience in developing, in releasing these titles. And like you said earlier, Game Pass and ID at Xbox made it extremely easy for you to get this game out there. And that's where I'm just kind of curious on, like, what is the overall temperature of the room when it comes to public opinion in the gaming industry of Game Pass?
I guess I don't have a great sense of that. Fellow Traveler, is still working with Game Pass, and I know other, their titles will be on it as well. So yeah, from my personal experience, Game Pass really took a lot of the risk out of releasing this game, and that was
so
tremendous.
It made you feel more comfortable as a developer that you were releasing a game in Game Pass. Like, it just made it to where the stress wasn't there and you were able to focus more on your craft.
Entirely, yeah. And making our first game, we self-funded the whole thing. It's one of those, like, put your life savings into this piece of art that you work on for 5 years. It's like it was definitely got pretty stressful, to be committing so much into the project, and we were eager to try to take an entrepreneurial, risk, but having at least part of the budget covered by this licensing deal with Xbox, like, was huge. And from like the business side, I have no idea what the, if we try to just only sell it on Steam or whatever, or try to get some deal with Apple Arcade or some other company, like would the game be more profitable or would it reach a larger audience? I have no idea. I think overall, having the game be accessible on Game Pass probably hasn't diminished the sales of the game all that much, because I see the game still is getting players, and a lot of I see that people support the game even though they played it on Game Pass. I see people picking it up on a Steam sale because they know we're a small team, and that that throwing us a couple bucks, it goes a long way. So yeah, I'm sure at like this like giant publishers or studios, it's probably a very different conversation than for small indies.
No, definitely, for sure. And that's where I've always, I could understand the argument for a large publisher that has a stake into it and also has the financial backing. But like you said, you got that initial payment for the licensing of the game that really helped fund the development and also make it less stressful.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's like kind of one of the things we've always tried to say, because like, like the whole concept of like, support the developers, don't rely on Game Pass, the whole idea that like, obviously, yes, you guys need sales to obviously have a couple bucks in your pocket and also continue doing what you guys do. But it's also good to hear that Game Pass also in a way helps take some of the stress that you guys have on putting, like you say, your life savings into it and 5 years of your dedicated life into creating these titles. And that's where, like even earlier when we talked about Cuphead in the pre-show, those guys financed, like put their homes on the line. So that's where, it's one of those things where I want the stigma of Game Pass to go away, that somehow Game Pass is this detrimental thing that harms developers across the board, when it's just great to hear that, like somebody like yourself said, it made it a less stressful risk for you to have your game come out.
Yeah, 100%.
If you didn't have your publisher, would you do it again? Like, let's say that it was that Microsoft said, hey, we'll put your game in Game Pass, right? And you didn't have your publisher. Would you do it?
Yeah, probably. But I don't think we would have gone a deal with Game Pass without our publisher.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's all hypothetical. Like if you had the option and Microsoft approached you and said, would you like your next game to be on Game Pass? You would? Probably?
Yeah, for sure. I think getting the game actually on Game Pass was not that challenging. Our publisher definitely helped a lot through that process. They had taken other games through that process and were familiar with it. But I don't think that, I think it's a pretty well-built system.
Definitely appreciate you for answering that question though, too. Because I love gaming, but for there's like a businessman deep down inside my heart somewhere that always loves to hear about the ins and outs of the gaming industry as a whole.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's very interesting for me to hear about all these different aspects too, and just to piggyback off of Centurion too, and that includes the business aspect, because again, we don't get to hear a lot of it. Sure, we hear about certain studio acquisitions and so on, but just to hear some of the interactions behind the scenes and the conversations that go on, we don't get to hear all the specifics of that, so it's always great to learn about that, right? But yeah, no, that's an awesome question, Centurion. Again, the guys in the chat have been very vocal, and I gotta say, Carlos Alvarado with the $1.99 super chat. Thank you very much, Carlos. He actually had a very good question, and I have to ask this. Evan, do you or your team worry about Metacritic? And honestly, I have to say too, very interesting question. How do you guys go about that, looking at that stuff? Because I remember when Genesis Noir first came out, it got some pretty good reviews, but there's always certain outlets that, some of them weighted a little lower than others. Some of them might not get it. Like you said, very experimental title. What do you think about it? Like an amalgamation of like those reviews, like a Metacritic.
Yeah. Well, when we started the project, I was definitely very nervous about releasing a piece of art that, I was really putting a lot of myself into, and I was definitely worried what people would think of it. But by the time we actually released the game, we were just so exhausted from trying to complete it and
Mm-hmm.
fixing bugs and everything that yeah, obviously I care about releasing a product that people enjoy, and from a business standpoint of making sure that we can recuperate our investment, but from I guess an emotional standpoint, that the process of making a game and being so invested in the project was kind of like an ego death experience. I kind of had to let that go to complete the quest. So yeah, Metacritic definitely. I'm a bit numb to it. One, because I was so exhausted, but two, I'm also very critical of the game. So if anyone has a very negative review, I totally get it. I'm probably the harshest critic of our work, and I suppose the one thing that I am very conscious of is that we released the game on Xbox, PC, Game Pass, and Switch and Mac all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And we just didn't have the bandwidth to playtest and bug hunt on all those different platforms to the degree that we should have. So in hindsight, I think that our Switch build was very buggy. Our Mac build had some visual glitches that we tested on Mac, but we didn't see those errors, and they were like very significant, like strobing, that could cause seizure, like really not good stuff. And yeah, we didn't catch that, and that I think some of those poor reviews are, it's the bugginess that was baked in. So from a business standpoint, from a hindsight standpoint, I think may have been more realistic, and maybe, I don't know, if it would have been better from a business standpoint to do a simultaneous ship and make sure all the media kind of hit at the same time, or to take 3 or 6 months off, between releasing on those different platforms and make sure that, we ironed out all the bugs. It's hard to say.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Yeah, of course.
So obviously, Xbox and PC, like Xbox runs off of a modified Windows 10. It uses the DirectX APIs. How different is it developing for Xbox versus developing for, say, like Windows?
I think it's very, very similar.
Okay.
Jeremy, my technical partner, would have a much better answer to this, but I believe packaging for the two is essentially the same.
Okay.
There may be like some slight differences, or
like optimization stuff.
Yeah, optimization, and definitely it requires a lot of playtesting twice to just even though they are very similar, just to be certain that everything is as you expect it.
Because Microsoft develops, both the DirectX API and that's why it's called Xbox.
Yeah,
I was just curious as to how similar it was, like in the development process.
Definitely very similar, but just for our small team, we didn't really appreciate the fact that, okay, just to run through the game, which takes a couple hours, and doing that for every single platform, it's just, we didn't really have the experience to appreciate how difficult quality assurance actually is.
A very underappreciated thing in like the
Yeah.
industry as a whole is from what I can tell from like even the larger studios, they just don't seem to necessarily like they'll ship it across a bunch of platforms, and one platform will always have some kind of problem. So
Mhm.
like it's very interesting to see that kind of just like across the board. You know what I mean? That like quality assurance is something that's very hard when you are developing across multiple very different platforms.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. I think there's definitely like a lot of like, oh, you're just very optimistic that
Mhm.
it's gonna work. And this is also just translates to the development process where um, like I play test something and I build out a scene and I it feels like it's so well engineered, and then as soon as I show someone, it immediately breaks, or they interact with it in just a slightly different way than I've been interacting with it. So yeah, it's a very humbling experience to make a game because there's so many ways things can break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it must be daunting sometimes. I mean, maybe even again, there's like a nervousness around just waiting for these reviews to come in, right, from some of these outlets.
Mhm.
Because we talked about Metacritic, but I don't know how you guys gauge it. Like if there's like certain outlets that you like look at more than others, or if it's just across the board.
Yeah, definitely across the board. I think what uh, our game Genesis Noir really did well with was more non-game press, like we got featured in the Guardian and New York Times and all these kinds of like
Oh.
more like if all these more mainstream kind of broad publications that they
Mhm.
dabble a little bit in games, and our game was just artsy enough to catch their eye. But we didn't do quite as well, I think, in like the broader games kind of public, like IGN. We got in a review for IGN Spain or Italy, I think, but not English. The like North American English
Mm.
IGN. So yeah, there's definitely like it. I would have liked to, have a more to get a couple more of those mainstream game press, just for the sake of making a game. Um, but it definitely it makes sense what publications covered our game and which ones didn't.
Hmm. I mean, if it means anything, I did a review on my own channel, my YouTube channel, when it came out, and I gave you guys a pretty favorable review. So I hoped I gave some eyes to you, some more people. So
Well, thank you for the support.
no problem, no problem. No, I just love the concept, right? Again, like I love noir, and I liked the style that you guys were going for. So you guys caught my eye in an instant with that, of course. Again, like you said, it's not going to be for everybody, but that's for me it worked. It worked.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what I was really happy to find was that people were very sympathetic and patient with us, even though narratively or from a design standpoint or an engineering standpoint, there are problems. A bug here or there, or an awkward scene, or something that was maybe could have been executed with more polish or grace. People really gave us a lot of benefit of the doubt, and um, to anyone who's interested in making games or art, or just trying to build something, I think I just want to express that you should go for it and do something different and weird, because people are going to respond to that and they're going to really be supportive of you.
All right. Good advice. Good advice. Good to know. Now, MLD, again, I know you had played the game, and you had asked a really awesome question earlier to Evan. Got anything else on your mind to pick his brain about?
On that regard, I checked your website. It says that it's your first game. And you said it was in development for 7 years, you said?
Yeah, we had the concept in 2012 or 2013. And there was years where Jeremy and I were freelancing and working in the commercial space and taking a week or two off to make a prototype or do some sketches or storyboard something. And then in 2016, I believe we went full time on the game.
Okay.
So yeah, and then released in 2021. So it was a long time that was staring at this character.
Yeah, it's amazing how even such a small kind of game can really just take up so much time, given the size of your team.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, since I had a good impression with the game. Hypothetically, any future plans for another project? Like hypothetically, did you ever think to expand personnel to tackle more complex ideas and game mechanics for any future game? And of course, I'm not asking you to be specific here or say anything that you can't say, but do you think my last part to the question would be, do you think it will be as experimental, or would you think of going more a mass market route?
Yeah, so we haven't announced anything yet, but I could say we are working on another game. And the first game was made with me and Jeremy and bringing on our freelance pals here or there. And our goal for this next project is to have more stability. So we've brought some of those freelance friends in full time. Noah, who unfortunately couldn't join us for this call, was an intern that we brought on full time. And my personal goal with developing as an artist and designer is to find ways that we could have both the poetic, artsy, tactile kind of interactions and direction of Genesis Noir, but to become more, to integrate more game design and world building, plot, environment design, and this game is still doesn't have crazy mechanics. There's no combat or platforming or anything like that. But if we're successful in this game and we choose to do another, I would like to keep going down the rabbit hole of mechanics and gaminess and seeing if there's a way to balance the things that make our work unique while bringing in these kinds of more, I guess, maybe more mass market, but also just more, what is the medium capable of? I want to take advantage of everything the medium's capable of.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. That's good to know, because I guess because of this one game, you will have an identity, a cultural perception of what gamers will expect. So that is nice to know that at least that spirit would be preserved.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess just casually, do you see the dev time being about the same, or would you look for ways to streamline with the lessons that you've learned along the way?
It's definitely streamlined a bit. There's we've been re-engineering a lot of the work that we did in the first game, but there are the lessons that we learned. There are, there's paths that are well trod. So, it shouldn't take as long as the first game. But it's as with, I think, most game projects, it's taking way longer than and being more expensive than we initially thought. But that's kind of how it goes, I think.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, Evan. You can tell us about Gears of Noir or Noir Infinite.
A lot of people were making the No Man's Sky connection because our character is called No Man.
Oh,
okay. Oh, I never even thought about that.
Yeah, I didn't think of it at all until but the internet was like, oh, there we go. That's it.
So here's a question for you. I might have missed this. I know you were talking about some, you mentioned the word engine earlier, and that kind of my brain. Did you guys write your own game engine for this, or did you use a licensed one?
So we used Unreal Engine 4
Unreal 4.
Jeremy made some modifications that let us do some custom rendering.
4.
Basically, like an effect to be able to like have stars be seen through different characters and mask out different like visual elements. And then we also wrote a plugin that lets us import 2D vector animation instead of
Okay.
sprite animation, or doing like rigged bones and puppeted kind of things, so that we didn't have to export sprite sheets and we could have nice full screen 2D animation.
And did you find your time working with Unreal was like it was good, like it was easy to work with?
Yeah, I love Unreal. It was my first real game engine to get into, other
Sure.
than like Flash. So it was a huge like thing to learn, and I still don't like know much about it. There's
Sure.
like lighting. We don't use lights in the game, so I don't know what lighting is like in Unreal. But in comparison, like I had my like previous creative life was all in Adobe, like Adobe Animate and Photoshop and all that stuff. And Unreal definitely is like a level of user friendliness and stability above
Adobe.
Adobe. Like I feel like Adobe doesn't
That's
really
not
have
hard.
yeah.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. They don't have competition. They kind of monopolize the market.
Yeah.
Whereas like game engines, there's a lot of competition. So
Mhm.
Unreal is great. Yeah.
I've used Unreal a tiny bit, but I know more with Unity, because that's what we would use in the for game jams in college.
Cool.
But yeah, so like with Unreal, you created some of those custom plugins, and I know that's a fairly easy process, or not easy. I shouldn't say easy, but it's fairly not hard to make edits to the engine, correct? Because it is open source.
Yeah, we originally started doing prototyping in Unity because that's what Jeremy had more experience with. But we ran into some problems, and Unity, at least at the time, I don't know if this has changed, but it wasn't open source, so we had to like ask on the forums for the developers to fix things. And Jeremy felt really adamant about going to Unreal, because if there was ever a problem, yeah, he could just get into the engine and make the fix himself.
Right.
So yeah, that was, I think, very valuable for us.
I know Unreal has a extremely like small dev favorable license as well, from what I've understand.
Yeah, it's amazing. Your first your first $1 million in gross sales is
They don't take anything, right?
They don't take anything. And then after that, I believe it's just like 5% or something, very reasonable. And then they've also given us, we got not a mega grant. It was like their program before their mega grants.
Okay.
But yeah, they gave us a bunch of money, and they're also, we got technical support from them for free. And yeah, the Epic's really great. The one negative thing about making a game in Unreal is that Epic likes to hire our collaborators. So
Sure.
they've sniped a lot of people.
Sure. That makes sense. That's why
Yeah,
they give the
sure.
grants and stuff in the first place, because they're essentially farming employees.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I just think it's funny that they're just like gobbling up all the developers.
Okay. All right. I mean, Crusader mentioned that he'd done some stuff with Unity. What do you think about other engines? Yeah, like one like Unity, for example.
Personally, I haven't used Unity in so long. I'm sure they're all really great and have different strengths, but yeah, I'm pretty committed to Unreal at this point.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Have you done any messing around with 5?
Yeah. Our new project is using 5.
Now, did you start the new project in 4 and move it to 5? Because I know that was a thing that they did with 5 that was really cool.
Yeah.
You did.
So
Okay.
we weren't very far along in development. by the time we moved it into 5, but I had been doing some prototyping and things like that.
That's because like I found that so cool because like I know with Unreal 3 to 4 you couldn't just open a 3 project into 4. You had to completely rebuild everything, like recreate the stuff. Yeah, and that's why it took so long for Unreal 4 to get adopted at the beginning of the last gaming generation. But 5 they were like, yeah, we don't want that problem again, so we're not going to have that problem.
Yeah, it's super painless. It migrates assets super easily, and like there's a couple small different, like even the old particle system is still supported in 5, even though they want you to use the new fancy one.
Was it a nanite or no?
Yeah, nanite.
Yeah, nanite. Yeah. That's really cool. I had one other question about Unreal 4, and I can't life of me remember what it was. Oh, have you noticed, like, I know the one of the drawbacks that I've seen when I was working with Unreal, and it's something that you can kind of see in a lot of games, is that file size becomes really big. Has that become a problem for you at all? At least with Unreal 5?
I don't think so. I don't know if other game engines would have smaller files, but it's never been a problem for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, very interesting. I mean, again, like I don't have a background in like game engines development, so I mean, I find this all very interesting about the talk with Unreal 4, Unreal 5, going to that, and just all the different intricacies and all that. That's cool. Now, Centurion, I don't know if you have any like technical stuff to ask Evan about, or whether it be more like anything about the game per se, or even the studio. What are your thoughts, Centurion?
I do have a very technical question. It's kind of grounded in what's going on today. Like, so we see the gaming industry as a whole, from developers and publishers, taking huge advantage of patching games day one, what be have you. Basically kind of like the whole idea of a game coming out incomplete. But that's where you started talking about like stuff you weren't able to catch in your testing phase, and things that just kind of slipped through the cracks, not something that was like maliciously, hey, we're just shoving the game across the finish line. And you found some bugs. Now, when you do discover a bug and you obviously want to patch that bug out, everybody has this idea or concept of you just flip a switch and you put out a patch. Tell me, like, in your experience of actually having to patch a game on Xbox and other systems, exactly how is it when you realize that there's a bug from start to finish? Like, what is the process, and generally how long does it take? Because you, as a small independent developer, fixing a small bug could probably be a lot easier than being a huge massive developer that's trying to patch out like a very massive, more complex game. So in your experience, what is patching a bug out of a game been like for you?
Yeah, it's definitely, I think probably being a smaller developer, there are points where we could cut corners where maybe a bigger developer would want to they only want to patch unless they do a full QA pass of their game. Whereas for us on like Steam, we could put a patch up right away, and let's say we're fixing a small, like a spelling error or something small that doesn't require testing, we could really quickly make that fix. But each platform has different certification process for patching. So on Steam, it's totally up to the developers to ensure that they're not going to break the software. So you have that responsibility. On Nintendo and Xbox, we have to submit a patch, and then that goes through a process at Xbox where they certify it, and then it goes live. So yeah, I found that Xbox is a little bit faster than Nintendo, and both of them could take a while, like a week, 2 weeks. And yeah, we were for the release of our of Genesis Noir, we definitely didn't really appreciate fully how slow that certification process would be. And I remember when we released on Nintendo Switch, there were like bugs that we had fixed for weeks that were fixed on the PC build, but we knew were broken on the Nintendo Switch, but we were just waiting for them to accept our patch, which was really frustrating because it was like, we have it, like the fix is here. But unfortunately, if someone plays this game the first day, they are going to have those problems.
Now, did you get to a point where like you were essentially lapping Nintendo, where like you had another patch ready and you were still waiting?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So you're saying sometimes the delays in a patch aren't even in the developer's hands; it's in the hands of the platform holder.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's a very good reason for that. The certification process is important because it is very easy to make a dumb mistake and like have a button toggled, and then all of a sudden half the game doesn't work, or you have the console commands available, or like just like so many opportunities to break things. So those like things that slow you down, that bit of friction, I really understand the purpose of it. But yeah, a lot of the times these bugs are quick to fix, but the checking it is the slow part.
Never would have thought about that. That's interesting. Again, all these different intricacies. I don't know. I'm learning so much here. No word of a lie. Guys, if you're really enjoying our chat here, don't forget to smash that like button and share this out. Again, I want more people here interacting. We've already had some good questions from the chat. And yeah, I mean, people love learning about Genesis Noir and Feral Cat Den. Lots of love for sure. Actually, speaking of which, Feral Cat Den. Now that's a very interesting name there, Evan. I don't know how you guys got around to choosing that name. I did look at the website a bit. I skimmed over a few things. I think everybody here on the panel is like a massive cat fan, actually. Like, in fact, I'm getting 2 little kitty cats later next week. The 2 little kittens.
Nice.
Yeah. Love my cats. But yeah, like, how did that name come around, really? That's an interesting title for a studio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I had been fantasizing about buying a warehouse or a barn and like taking a year or 2 off with a bunch of friends just to make weird art. So I just kept on telling this to my friends, like, yeah, some like place that's so cheap that, you know, go out in the middle of nowhere and buy a barn or some feral cat den. And my buddy Andy, he just he picked up on that, and he just kept on calling it the Feral Cat Den. And I really hated that name. I was like, I really don't want to call it that. Like, let's think about it, or like, let's come up with an intentional name. But it stuck, and now I think it works. I really like that. You know, the name chose us rather than the other way around.
All right. Yeah, that's funny because I am actually getting 2 barn cats, funny enough. But yeah, I mean, I know that's a pretty cool name. Got to admit. GeneralMLD, I know you're a big fan of kitty cats as well, but yeah, you got any more thoughts for Evan?
I'm just curious. What is your favorite level of the game? Mine is the last level. I like the whole. It was very. I don't want to say trippy, but the parts of the game where it just kept zooming in and zooming out, and it was just a visual experience for me. Like that stood out to me the most, looking back on the whole game. So yeah, what was your favorite level, would you say?
My favorite level would be the jazz level. It's called Improvisations, where you like meet a busking bassist in a like jazz era city.
Yeah.
And I think that is our most successful level, where we balance the artsy interaction or like installation art kind of experience with a game kind of structure. So it begins with you encountering this musician, and then you begin playing music with them with Simon Says interaction, which I
Right.
think is like a very simple way to introduce you this idea of like call and response. And then we progress into eventually you're like creating this cosmic city out of like musical note bars, and it's like this very expressive kind of drawing where you click and hold your cursor, and then we record the drawing or the path that you make, and then the musician duplicates that path but transforms it so that the pitch is different, or it's it's slower or faster. And I think that was the best kind of balance of like both storytelling and interaction that we accomplished. There were definitely other scenes that I really liked, like individual moments, but as like a piece of design, I think that was our most successful piece.
Now, just to piggyback off of that, was there anything like cut from the game that you really wanted to be in there but couldn't make it in?
Yeah, we cut some stuff that we later put in as DLC on our 1 year anniversary. And also there's obviously an enormous amount of things that we would have wanted to do, but we didn't even start or get past like concepting. The kind of tragic aspect of this Big Bang concept is that we could put anything in the game, and there's just so much that in our research we got really inspired by. So we had to be pretty judicious about what we could try to make.
All right. Actually, to be honest with you, I didn't even realize that you guys had added some stuff for the 1 year anniversary. So I definitely need to go back to the game. I had no idea. So that's great.
Yeah, we added 3 little levels, and if you don't have to play through the whole game in order to like experience those. If you've played through the game, then they'll be unlocked, and you could play through them as a set of 3, and they tell a little story as a set, like a very simple story, but they work as a set.
Oh, all right. Well, I guess I know what I'm playing after work tomorrow evening. Crusader, do you have any more like engine questions, or I don't know,
I just want to ask a
what's on
fun
your mind?
question.
Mhm.
We've been talking some technical stuff and stuff like that. What is your favorite game, just in general?
I think, well, it's hard to pick a single favorite game, but my games, I'm going to just vomit a bunch. Witcher 3, it's such an incredible, like, well-realized world. So many incredible details. The structure of the quests is like so remarkable in the way that the environment changes over time, and it feels like your actions really have subtle consequences that aren't just part of the explicit plot. Windowsill was a huge inspiration for this game and one of my favorite games. It's by a local New York City artist called Vector Park, and it's this like surrealist masterpiece of design and programming and visual art. You could find it online to try it. It's really great. And I'm a huge fan of Half-Life, of Portal. I'm a huge Valve fanboy, and Anamita Design, Samarost, and Botanicula, and those adventure games. Oh, and Psychonauts. Psychonauts is also a huge inspiration and one of my favorites.
And I love Psychonauts too. I finally finished it this year. But man, I love Psychonauts too. I listen to that Jack Black song like once a week.
Yeah, it's such a such a technical achievement. Like, the themes that they managed to accomplish, like tackle while still making it so silly and funny is like, what a storytelling achievement too.
It screams like Tim Schafer masterpiece.
Yeah, he's a genius.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why I always find it to be, piggybacking onto like again some stuff that we talked to earlier on, because it's one thing to stick with a theme, but again, since it's also a game, right? You have to make it fun.
Yeah,
finding fun, and it's just, I can just imagine what you guys went through to be able to find that fun for the game, right?
Yeah, I think our game definitely the fun is how we take you to unexpected places, and we expect you to kind of try new things out. So rather than making like one consistent fun mechanic that you really develop an intrinsic sense of motivation and mastery over, it's just about like us vomiting as much like content at you as possible, which is enjoyable to create, but is like super not fun to try to debug because we ended up just like having to run through the same linear sequence thousands of times over the course of like 7 years of development. So yeah, that's one of the motivations for wanting to push ourselves into trying to tackle actual mechanics in future titles. Not only because I like mechanics and I want us to learn how to make them, but also just for our sanity as game developers, to like have an experience that we will enjoy playing throughout the whole process of development.
All right, that's fair comment. I totally understand what you're saying there. Now, Centurion Pal, anything else that you would like to ask our friend here?
I guess the main question is, like, obviously you're making a new title already. You're using Unreal Engine 5.
Mhm.
Is there like future ambitions of like designing much larger, grandiose style titles that you guys would like to do, or are you guys just really focused on the niche and the style of games that you guys are developing?
That's a great question, and I really have no idea. The idea of like growing the studio, I think, is interesting but very challenging. I don't think anyone on our team is naturally a business person. That's something that we, are really challenging ourselves with, and we really enjoy the craft side of making games. But I also think as we get older that the craft of like cultivating a studio culture and elevating younger collaborators and mentoring them will become more and more appealing. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's a difficult question. It really depends a lot on how successful this game is and how, how it's kind of out of our hands. If we have collaborators that really want to help us come grow a studio to accomplish bigger titles, then that might be our future.
All right.
Fair comment. Very actually interesting question there, Centurion. Well thought out. Now, obviously, we don't want to take up too much of your time, Evan, but if it's all right, we don't just a couple of more questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
Now, obviously, you had said, some of your favorite games from the past little while. Is there any titles that you're really looking forward to playing in like the very near future?
The Cyberpunk DLC, that's for sure. And there's the unfortunate thing about being a game developer is I don't have any time or energy to play games. When I do play games, it's generally more junk food kind of stuff, like comfort food, rather than trying something new. I need to be better about trying to experience new things, but I find myself playing a lot of Dota 2 just like
My man.
been been something that I've been playing since Warcraft 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I played Cyberpunk, and the DLC is going to be that perfect sweet spot of like, oh, familiar, and but also new, and also just like I'm such a CD Projekt Red fan that I'm really excited to see what they pull out.
All right. I mean, yeah, actually, I'm sitting on that in my backlog. I had started it, but then I needed to wait because the first little while for the game wasn't exactly spotless, but I really need to get back into it. It's such a.
I think they're like, for the DLC, they're redesigning a lot of the systems and gameplay actually. So I would encourage you to actually wait until the DLC and play it from kind of the latest and greatest, because it's affecting the base game and base story. So I'm really I only played through it once, but I've wanted to play through it again and been waiting just to see those, like, what did they do with the design? What are the lessons they learned? I think that'll be really interesting. I don't think I've played a game where they've kind of redesigned it to the degree that it sounds like they're redesigning it.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's true. I guess I am gonna have to wait for that. Yeah, because that DLC, when is it coming out? In September, I think.
Yeah, it's soon. I think
the end of
September,
I believe.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that are gonna want to play that for sure. No, that's cool. That's cool. By the way, I completely know what you mean though about going back to old favorites, because I think everybody here on the panel has like a game that they go through like each year. Myself, it's Halo 2.
Oh,
I
nice.
love Halo 2 to death. I think with Crusader, it's like the Mass Effect trilogy altogether.
Who could have guessed from the Garrus profile picture that it was Mass Effect? Yeah, I play through the trilogy once a year as kind of like a I get like seasonal depression in the winter, and it's kind of like my comfort winter kind of thing. I always feel great when I'm playing, because I've played it with so many friends. I've watched so many friends play. I've gotten so many friends into it, and we all just have a good time. So it kind of elicits all those feelings too, as well as just being a spectacular experience.
Yeah, it just, like you said, it's comfort food, right? Just to go back to some of those games, they're just, they're nice to go back to. You just have those fond memories.
Yeah.
Halo MCC for me.
Oh, so just all the games.
Well, whatever campaign scratches the itch, That's the beauty of it. Sometimes I'm a lore guy, so I like Halo 4 for the story. Sometimes I want to be a little more nostalgic, I'll play Halo 1. But yeah, every year I keep coming back to it.
Yeah, the Halo love. You can tell that this is an Xbox-centric podcast.
Yeah.
Actually, Centurion, is there a game that you go back to every year?
Other than Elder Scrolls Online? No.
Oh yeah, good point.
I guess I gotta say Destiny too then.
Yeah. What is a game that I go back to all the time though, and actually don't get tired of playing? Oh my God. Actually, that's the funny part. I think I'm with Crusader on Mass Effect. Because I mean, like, damn, that game, those games are just absolutely great. But yeah, I'd have to say Mass Effect is the one that really comes to mind right now. Because it's just stuck with me over the generations. Because you got to think about it, the original Mass Effect game was Xbox 360, then it Xbox, One, and now we have the Xbox Series X version of the game. So I mean, like, yeah, definitely for sure, I would have to be with Crusader on that one.
Yeah, those are great games.
Yeah, lots of love for Mass Effect on Halo here. Damn. Now, MLD, I know you're holding back something. What would you like to ask, Evan?
I asked it before, but since you guys were talking, I just want to know, like, in general, like, what's your favorite game mechanic? I know that's a very broad question, but I'm just curious to just to pick your brain there.
Just across all of games, or
Yeah, like your personal favorite, maybe as like a gamer and maybe as a developer.
yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I think what I'm most fascinated in right now is just movement, like movement for especially 3D characters. That's something that I really want to play with for future projects.
Okay.
Is yeah, I think platforming is interesting. I'm not like an expert on platformers, but all the subtleties in the way that movement can be achieved, and how like expressive a player can feel with just how they move through a space, how they control their speed. If they could jump, are they jumping on random things? Are they emoting in a way that the character would emote, or um, do they try to be silly and like kind of break the fourth wall of the game? I think these are all like really, really interesting, and something I really want to like experiment with and get educated on, those nuances.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. All right. No, fair comment. Guys, anything else? Anything else you'd like to ask? A Crusader, Centurion?
It's about tapped out.
All tapped out. You see, we went through a lot of questions here. Um,
Actually,
on-
there is one question we could ask him. It's
So-
like, let's get some what are some of those games like that has really kind of made you have a passion for developing games? Like I'm pretty sure there had to be some games that you grew up playing a certain genre. I mean, like we all just said, like Mass Effect right here. Like what games is it that you really have has really influenced your passion as a game developer?
Yeah, I think the games that really stuck with me were PC games. I had a Game Boy and Nintendo before that, but I think it was games like Warcraft 3, Max Payne, Half-Life 2 that really like connected with me and made me think about games and like really want to make my own games. So yeah, that kind of like era of PC games is what really got me in, and Psychonauts was kind of the first game that really felt like, oh, it's possible to tell a very like idiosyncratic kind of world and story. So yeah, I'd say those are some really foundational ones for me.
All right. All right, fair comment. I guess I'll end off all this just by asking, like, how important is, I mean, as an indie developer, how important is it to like retain that like control over your projects? I mean, obviously you deal with like publishers and whatnot. Like I don't know how Fellow Traveler is, but like how important is it to uh like how important is it for you to have like that autonomy over your projects?
Mhm. I'd say it's very important. With Fellow Traveler, I think for most of their projects, and with our relationship with them, they provide feedback, but they don't have any kind of creative control. And in general, I think that in order to like to make an indie game, you really have to devote yourself to it. I've been working in the world of Genesis Noir for 10 years now, and in a lot of ways, my entire life experience has become a filter for thinking about this story and creating a work-life synthesis. And part of that is understanding and appreciating that the story isn't authored by you solely, that it's a collaborative process, and even more generally, it's the project authoring itself through the collaborative and creative process of the team that's creating it. But I think that if you're not fully immersed within the world and creation and fully committed to it, and not everyone should be when creating a project like this, there needs to be people that have the distance and without that full commitment. But yeah, the people that do have that full commitment, I think it's very important that they're the ones that have the ultimate, perspective about what the project is becoming and should become. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no, that's no, it makes a lot of sense. But I think on that note, Evan, we'll kind of conclude things, and that'll be it for tonight. But I gotta say, thank you for coming on the show and taking time out of your schedule for speaking with us tonight. Obviously, you're busy working on your next project. I hope it doesn't take like another 7 years.
Me too.
But although from the sounds of things, it's really picking up steam. So I'm very happy to hear that. Really happy to hear that. And again, from what the panel is saying, we really enjoy Genesis Noir. I know it came out a couple of years ago, but it did always kind of stick with me because it did have that. Again, it was very unique, and I can really appreciate that. I mean, there's a place for all kinds of games, whether they be the big AAAs, that come out, every once or twice a year. But I really do appreciate, again, the smaller titles that, while they may not have the size or grandeur, they have that uniqueness and a different kind of depth to them that bring just so much personality that kind of really stick with you. And that's how I felt with Genesis Noir. But again, it was a pleasure just to learn about your part in how, again, the game was made, the game industry, your part in the industry, and just Feral Cat Den. It's great to learn more about your studio. Is there anywhere where our followers or listeners can follow you at, or your studio?
Yeah, we have a Twitter and Instagram, which are not very active right now, but in the future they will be again. So if you want to patiently wait, then you can follow us there. But yeah, Feral Cat Den, or actually I think it's Genesis Noir is our account name. That's the one we've been using. Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys, check it out. Check it out if you haven't already. Really fun game, really unique title. But yeah, it was great to be able to chat with you, and we would love to have you on again at some point. And Noah as well. We got to get Noah on too at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for coming on. I'll move over to the TXR regulars. Crusader, pal. Hey, I thought you had some really awesome questions for Evan. Where can everybody find you at?
Yeah, you can find me at Crusader3456 on Xbox, PlayStation, I think Switch. I don't know if you can actually search by name on Switch. Steam, Twitter, everything like that. And yeah, it was great having someone on to ask questions. I love learning more about the industry like that. It's fantastic. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for welcoming me to your podcast and all the support. Really, and kind words. It really means a lot.
We appreciate that. Centurion, you also had some really good stuff to ask Evan. Again, where can everybody find you at, my friend?
Oh yeah, definitely a great show tonight. Thank you to our guests for being here. Really enjoyed getting all your input and feedback on your experiences in doing what you do and creating these experiences for us to all enjoy. For those interested in at least my content and what I do, you can find me at Centurion1307, YouTube, Xbox, and Twitter, X, whatever the hell it's called nowadays. That's a whole subject in itself. For those who are also wanting to hear me podcast more, I'm obviously here on TXR every Sunday night, and 2 hours before the start of this show, you can also find me on Gaming Beyond the Box.
Busy man. All right. Yeah, hey, you're going places. You're going places, my friend. And next up, the GeneralMLD. Buddy, hey, good stuff tonight. Where can everybody find you?
Yeah, you guys can find me at MLD Ghost on Twitter, Gamertag GhostMLD, and yeah, just want to thank our guests for coming on and giving us some insight into the indie industry.
Thanks, guys.
All right. And yeah, just to round off the group and things tonight, of course, you can find my content on YouTube at Invader Gaming. I do have an older review of Genesis Noir in case you guys are checking it out. Find it on my channel. And of course, you can find me on Twitter, or I like to call it Twix now because of the name change. Twix just kind of rolls off. You can find me on Twitter at Invader_1986. Again, loved learning everything tonight from you, Evan, and we look forward to seeing everybody here next Sunday. Lots of stuff to talk about, as always. The game industry never stops with the news. Later, guys. It's been fun.
Bye.